So we're going to make Nantucket cranberry sauce, a recipe from the now defunct Gourmet Magazine. Our recipe calls for a cup of orange juice. I prefer tangerine. A 1/4 cup light molasses, or not the dark molasses essentially. 1/4 cup maple syrup. 2 tablespoons light brown sugar. 2 tablespoons butter, a pinch of salt, and cranberries. Put your cranberries into a nice, solid, non-reactive pan and start to pick over them. What pick over them means is that you go through them. If they feel mushy, look old, look too light even, then you get rid of them because they're not good. So look for the bruised, the wrinkly, the mushy. They should be taut, they should bounce. It should be nice, hard little balls. An example of a not so good cranberry. It's not awful, but you can see that it's got that indentation there, that wrinkly bruise. It should be taut and smooth all over, like this side of it. So get rid of ones that look like that. Another example of one with a kind of bruised and ugly mark. No good. The actual recipe tells you to pour in the orange juice, add the sugars, salt, and butter, bring up the heat, and let it all dissolve before adding the berries. But I see no reason to do that. It works just fine if you just start pouring stuff in. Remember to pack tight the brown sugar. You're probably going to need more of that. I found that in most cases, cranberry recipes aren't sweet enough and you sometimes have to add extra sugar. There goes the molasses. That's what's going to give this that wonderful New England flavor. Turning on the heat now. It's right below here so you can see. There we go. And then we have the maple syrup. Don't forget to add a pinch of salt and the butter. And now we just wait for it to all melt together. All our sugar and butter has dissolved, and now we're just waiting for the beginning of the magic of cranberry sauce. That's when the berries start to pop and release all their juices and yumminess. You may notice as well that this pot is on a plate. I have this on a heating plate rather than just the pure flame to keep the temperature even. It does better when it comes to sauces. It's been about 5 minutes now, maybe 3, and the heat has gotten up hot enough and the liquid is near boiling enough that the berries are starting to pop. And once they start really popping, you want to turn down the knob here to more of a simmer, because if you don't, they might burn. You can see cracks in the berries here. That's where they've popped. Now it's just a matter of stirring and waiting till they all seem to have popped. Here's my own secret for cranberry sauce. I like to mash the berries. You can really hear them popping against the side if you do that, even if they've already popped. Push them down and mash them, push them to the side and mash them. Get them good and mashy. It turns the sauce saucy a lot faster. Mashed up most of the cranberries, and now, like with any jam or jelly, we want to skim off the bubbles and foam just to make sure it gets really good flavorful here. That's all we're going to do. It's about 5 minutes since the berries started popping, about 10 minutes since we started the recipe in the first place. It's starting to thicken. You'll notice that this is going to be a very dark colored cranberry sauce. You can already see it's kind of brownish. Its color is going to be a very dark red molasses color. You're going to love it. Let it simmer, let it bubble, let it reduce for another 5 minutes. Remember to keep watching it and stirring it. It burns easily. We're about 15 minutes in now. 5 minutes of just simmering and boiling, and it's beginning to look like a sauce, but it's still too lumpish and soupy. We want it much more thick than this, so we're going to go for another 5 minutes. Keep your eye on it. Keep stirring. We're almost done. Notice how we have here a sauce. It's not going to be a smooth sauce like what you get out of a can. It's going to be a lumpy sauce, but it's going to be full-flavored, textured, delicious. Now is the time when we're going to taste it and see if we need to add more sugar. You can also take this time to add some other things, like dried fruit, which will plump up in the sauce and give it a lot of interesting flavors. Dried apricot, raisins, dried cherries, dried cranberries even. I've tasted the sauce, and it's not quite sweet enough for me. It is sweet, just not enough. So I'm going to add some dark brown sugar, which has molasses in it, and should go very nicely with the flavorings already in there. Make it just a tad sweeter. That's about 2 tablespoons. It'll melt instantly into the sauce. Be careful, the sauce is very hot. It's like hot candy, hot sugar. If you taste it, you might burn your tongue, so be very careful about getting a taste. Put a dab on a plate, let it cool a bit, and then taste it. Keep tasting it till it's right for you and your family. It should have wonderful tart, sweet, molasses, maple flavor to it. Add more brown sugar, more maple sugar, till it tastes right to you. Here we are at about 25 minutes in. That's about 15 minutes since the berries started popping. We have a nice, thick, rich, dark sauce, and it is effectively done. Now all we need to do is let it cool. There are no spices in the recipe, but I'm inclined to add a little cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove. Just add a little extra kick to it. Just stir them on in. Once your cranberry sauce has cooled down a little, you can pour it into a bowl to let it cool down more. Notice that it is not the bright ruby red of most cranberry sauces. This is a much darker garnet red, almost like a nice red wine. When it cools down enough, cover it and put it in the refrigerator. You'll want to let it go back up to room temperature before serving. It will, as it cools down, become more jello-like, but it will never have that kind of jelliness that you find in cans. It's going to be much more sauce-like and much more delicious. Enjoy!